Yeah, Erica, this has been an interesting week when it comes to talking about crime in D.C. Remember, President Trump says on yesterday, in the Oval Office that crime in D.C. is ridiculous.
America, Washington, D.C. has completely lost control of juvenile crime. The numbers are absolutely staggering. 56% of carjacking arrests are minors. More than half of D.C. car thieves are kids. We're talking about 12-year-olds committing armed robbery. 60% of juvenile carjackers between 15 and 16 years old. And organized gang attacks involving 10 teenagers beating people unconscious. But here's the most infuriating part. D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb refuses to charge minors as adults, saying kids are kids while children are committing violent felonies with guns.
I have all crimes across the board. I get illegal gun convictions. Some of the judges won't send them to jail.
So they're carrying guns that are not licensed.
Everybody's got a gun in this city, and they're all illegal.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly shows what happens when you prioritize criminal rehabilitation over victim protection. You get an army of child criminals terrorizing America's capital. Let me break down these numbers because they're absolutely mind-blowing. 56% of carjacking arrests in D.C. are minors. Think about that. More than half of people stealing cars at gunpoint are children. 60% of juvenile carjackers are of the age of 15 to 16 years old, which means high school sophomores and juniors are treating violent crimes like a part-time job.
Half the people arrested, however, in D.C. for carjacking, 51%, are juveniles this year. According to D.C. statistics, more juveniles have been arrested in D.C. this year through the end of June.
But here's what's even more disturbing. We're seeing 12-year-olds commit armed robbery. 12-year-olds. These are sixth graders who should be worried about homework and video games. But instead, they're stealing cars at gunpoint and beating people unconscious.
But the real issue is this, Leland. It's the parent, or parents. In many cases, it's a single parent not supervising their children. That's what's causing these issues. If they're 12 and 13-year-olds are out at 3 and 4 in the morning doing carjackings, where is that parent?
The case that really exposes this crisis is the Edward Coristine beating. This 19-year-old former DOGE employee, aka Big Balls, was trying to help a young woman who was being carjacked by a gang of 10 teenagers. They beat him up so badly he ended up with a broken nose, a severe concussion, and injuries all over his head.
This young kid who worked at the White House, he's battered all over his head, by a gang of punks. 10 of them, I believe. 2 have been arrested, 2 15-year-olds.
Here's where this gets absolutely infuriating. D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb refuses to charge minors as adults, literally saying kids are kids, while children are committing violent felonies.
But minors are prosecuted or not prosecuted by D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb.
Yeah.
And last year when there was a whole bunch of carjackings, the city was under crisis, he said to the press, he said out loud, he said, well, we're not going to prosecute and arrest our way out of this. Well, why not?
Judge Jeanine Pirro, the new U.S. attorney for D.C., explained the problem perfectly.
None of them come to my office, Laura, because they're not considered criminals. They go to family court where the effort is rehabilitation. The D.C. Council, and the president is right, they've got to stop their coddling.
Think about this logic. A 15-year-old can steal your car at gunpoint, beat you unconscious, and terrorize your family, but they're not considered criminals because they're biologically prone to make mistakes. What? Stealing cars at gunpoint is not a mistake. It's a violent crime that traumatizes victims for life. Judge Jeanine pointed out the incentive that this creates.
That, and that's why they travel in gangs.
Know that.
And the older kids send out the younger kids to do the real dirty work because they know they're fine.
They absolutely understand.
Criminal organizations are literally using kids as weapons because they know the justice system won't punish children. That's not compassion. That is creating a criminal recruitment pipeline. The soft on crime approach has already been proven deadly. Remember the case of the 13 and 15-year-olds who murdered an Uber driver? 2 middle schoolers killed a 66-year-old man using a stun gun during a carjacking attempt, and they got juvenile detention until age 21. The victim, Mohammed Anwar, was a 66-year-old Pakistan immigrant working as an Uber driver to support his family. And when he tried to stop them, they crashed the car and killed him. Both pled guilty but avoided real adult consequences. This case perfectly illustrates the problem. When you murder someone and only serve until age 21, you're sending a message that killing is acceptable as long as you're young enough. What kind of deterrent is that? The weapons being used by these child criminals are getting more sophisticated as well. We're seeing stun guns, firearms, and organized group attacks. 72% of carjackings involve guns, which means children have easier access to firearms than the consequences for using them.
Is it time to start holding parents responsible?
We've done that in St. Louis. 4th of July, for example, downtown St. Louis. Basically, if juveniles were engaged after curfew in any kind of offenses down there, they were brought into the police station. Their parent was called to come and pick them up, and then the parent was issued a summons for contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
President Trump has had enough of this chaos. He's threatening a federal takeover of D.C. if local authorities do not get their act together. Trump said,
and either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be run.
Judge Jeanine supports Trump's approach completely. We've got to lower the age of responsibility to 14. I'm tired of having kids commit crimes and their crews, not gangs in D.C. She's calling for 14-year-olds to be charged as adults for violent crimes, which is exactly what we need.
Number one, we've got to lower the age of responsibility to 14. I'm tired of having these kids commit crimes and their crews, not gangs in D.C.
The system is completely broken. Judge Jeanine described a case where somebody shot a kid on a bus with an illegal gun, and the sentence was probation. The judge literally said, go to college. You take an illegal gun, shoot someone on public transportation, and your punishment is a college recommendation?
The council has this Youth Incarceration Act where we had a guy who shot a kid on a bus, not justified, with an illegal gun. You know what the sentence was? Probation. The judge said go to college.
This isn't just a D.C. problem. This is happening in Democrat-run cities across America. But D.C. is special because it's our nation's capital. When foreign diplomats and world leaders visit America, they see children committing violent crimes without consequences. What does this say about American governance? The economic impact is devastating as well. Businesses are closing, residents are moving away, and tourism is declining because people don't feel safe. When congressional staffers and FBI agents are getting carjacked, the situation is completely out of control. Judge Jeanine pointed out that D.C. has a Violence Interruption Act where they pay convicted murderers $20 million to go into communities and interrupt violence. Think about that. They're paying murderers to stop other people from committing murder instead of just locking up these criminals.
Look, the D.C. Council has passed laws that are absurd. They've got some kind of, I think it's a Violence Interruption Act where they put $20 million. They take murderers, convicted murderers, to go out into the community, pay them to interrupt violence.
The curfew that they implemented is just a Band-Aid solution. They have an 11 p.m. citywide curfew for under 18, and in some neighborhoods have a 7 p.m. curfew. That's essentially martial law for children, while the real problem, lack of consequences, goes unaddressed. America, Washington, D.C.'s juvenile crime crisis is a perfect example of what happens when ideology trumps public safety. When you refuse to hold violent criminals accountable because of their age, you create more victims and more crime. 56% of carjacking arrests being minors isn't a statistic. It's a condemnation of a failed justice system that prioritizes criminal rehabilitation over victim protection. When 12-year-olds are committing armed robbery and 15-year-olds are beating people unconscious and organized gang attacks, your kids are kids philosophy has completely failed. The solution is simple. Lower the age of adult prosecution to 14 for violent crimes, eliminate catch and release policies, and start treating violent crimes seriously regardless of the age. Some crimes are so serious that the age becomes irrelevant. President Trump's threat of federal takeover isn't extreme. It's necessary. When local authorities refuse to protect their own citizens, federal intervention becomes the only option. D.C. has proven they can't handle this crisis, so it might be time for the adults to take over. The victims of these crimes deserve justice, not excuses about brain development and rehabilitation. The residents of D.C. deserve safety, not lectures about compassion for criminals. And America deserves a capital that isn't run by child criminals. I'll keep you updated as this crisis continues, and hopefully federal intervention brings some sanity back to our nation's capital. And remember, this is what happens when you elect prosecutors who care more about criminals than victims. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.